Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to another Co's Daily Brew. Today I want to talk about, I guess, something I've never wanted to talk about, and that has been my depression. I have talked about it before online. I'm not going to go as far as saying that I haven't. I think I've just always kind of done a pretty good job with kind of like either balancing it out with also talking about my anxiety, or kind of masking it by over talking about my anxiety and kind of leaving a little bit more of my experience with depression out of the story. The thing is that recently I've become very aware about how all of the parts of my history have played into a big portion of who I am today. And it's been like a theme, okay, where I feel like there's been a lot of like deja vu moments that I've been having lately, and just emotions that I'm noticing kind of boiling up, and I've been aware of them, I've been observant of them, and just trying to basically look at them with the perspective of what is this trying to tell me, or is this an emotion? A lot of the times I feel like it has been emotions that I've felt at another time in my life and just like never really fully digested and allowed myself to feel it, and instead would numb it out. And so I think that like this year I'm dealing with a lot of those old numb emotions kind of popping up, and I'm just like experiencing them again in a way that is very healing. I feel like I'm healing a lot of old emotions, especially from when I was younger. This year, I don't know why, at 25, it just like chose me this year, and it's kind of been like a little bit out of my control. It feels a little bit more out of my control. And so one thing in particular that I've really been paying attention to and really been shifting my focus on in therapy, and even just like through journaling and just in general, it's been like a deja vu thing in my life a little bit more lately, is these pockets of time that I've had in my past that I was dealing with depression that I don't think I ever really fully was aware maybe of how much it was actually affecting me and how big of a problem it was. Because with the thing about depression versus anxiety is it's easier to kind of mask depression than it is to mask anxiety. When you're anxious, people can tell, and when you're having a panic attack, you can't hide that. But when you're depressed, it's a lot easier to kind of put a mask on, slap a face on. And in a lot of ways, I think that for me, especially when I was dealing with depression in high school, but even after high school, I had a lot of functioning depression. So I would be very, very depressed, and I would feel to say I was very, very depressed is even kind of a wrong choice of words, in the sense that that's not how I felt. I think it more so felt like I was more disconnected with my life, and things that I knew in one way or another I cared about a lot, they didn't really generate that feeling in me, and I just kind of grew to be very like numb. And it was a feeling that I had come and go throughout my life, and it was a feeling that used to scare me a lot. And so I think those times that I have dealt with that feeling of depression, I've really locked them down inside my mind or inside my like subconscious to just like, nope, don't go there, don't touch that. And it's been really hard, or it has been really hard for me in the past to kind of accept and swallow those feelings again, and I guess let them go in a lot of ways, because I never really let myself face them. And so I have been lately, and it's been very restorative, I feel, in terms of just like me and my soul together. And so I figured I would talk about it with you guys today, in case there's any of you guys out there that have dealt with depression or have gone through a phase of depression in your life. A lot of people, before the time that you die in your life, you usually deal with depression at least once, or you know someone that has. So maybe I figured talking about it today would not only make it a little less weird to talk about it, but also if any of you out there have experienced this before, let you know that you're not alone. So the first time I ever remember really fully dealing with depression was in the earlier stages of high school, maybe even a little later into elementary school, but not so much in elementary school. And the only way that I can describe it, because at the time I wasn't fully aware that it was an experience that not everybody feels. I kind of thought that I was just like normal until it started to really affect my life, and I ended up going to my doctor about it. Was I almost became like, I want to say that from the time I was pretty young, I've always kind of had this like dialogue inside my mind. Like I've been aware of my thoughts. And at one point I remember being in like high school and just looking around at like my room, or looking around at like my family, or looking around at just all the things that made up my life, and feeling just completely unconnected to it all, and feeling just kind of like emotionless and just kind of slack about it all. It wasn't like I was like sad. I definitely went through that too, where there were phases where I got really, really sad, but it was more so that that sadness kind of was almost too unbearable for me to feel and for me to take on alone and by myself. And so I would just kind of turn it off. But then when I would turn it off, I would almost turn off like all of my emotions. So I didn't really get excited about things, and I didn't really get happy about things, and I didn't really get low about things either. I just kind of stayed really slump, and it was an easy thing to hide because, you know, you go to school and you kind of go about your day. You're not really expected to be like super excited to be at school, so it just like, people just think you're a moody teenager, but it wasn't just being a moody teenager. It was bigger than that. The only thing is that when I started doing that or behaving that way, or I don't even know if I really don't think it was by choice that I was trying to turn it off. I think at the time I was just doing what I thought or felt was the best way for me to deal with it, because it was like, God, this emotion, all these things I'm thinking and feeling and experiencing is so overwhelming to me, and it's taking a lot out of me, and it's really heavy, and I don't know how to feel it by myself, and I don't feel like I have a safe place to feel it with anyone else or talk about it with anyone else. So instead I just turned it off, and that was kind of like my own, I think, subconscious way of protecting myself without even realizing it. But then at the same time, I definitely believe that when we muffle or suppress anything and we push things away, it'll find another way, it'll find another entrance into our lives. And so for me, I think that came out when I started to act out a little bit. I started to rebel a little bit. I lost my sense of self, and I think that's normal when you're a teenager to definitely not have any idea who you are. But I also just knew that there were times and choices that I had made in my life at that point and during those times that I could tell was coming from a place of like, this isn't who I am, because it would feel wrong to my core, but I would do it anyway. I can't fully explain why I felt the way I did. I'm sure if I really thought about it or just did a whole other video on it, I could explain what made me feel those ways and what was almost too overwhelming for me to feel, but that part is not really as relevant as to the fact that that was just what I was feeling. And I didn't think that I had, or I didn't have any proof to say that I felt like I had a place to talk about these things. And that's why I think it is so important to release this whole stigma around mental health. And it's so incredible that even from the years that I was in high school to the years that there are now, it's a lot more accepted. But I think that at the time, and still today, it can be one of those things that isn't always so openly spoken of, and it can be hard even for the people that are closest to you if they're dealing with their own things and their own, you know, just problems in life, to know that someone's suffering or to know that someone's going through something. And so I think that I just felt like I didn't have a safe place aside from myself, and that it was too much for myself, so just turned it off. Now, I know this is Co's Daily Brew, so I'm not going to try and make this too long, but here is, I guess, the takeaway that I've had with my recent facing these feelings again. It was actually my therapist that taught me this whole little trick that you can do, and you can do it in your own way and in whatever way that feels comfortable for you if you're trying to kind of face things in your life, whether it is like, you know, times that you've been depressed or any time in your life, maybe it's a time you were anxious, anything that just kind of like was really hard for you to deal with in any kind of way. Whatever it is, it's almost kind of like you mentally go back to that version of yourself. So for me, it was the version of myself that was in, like, it's gonna sound super lame, but like my high school bedroom. And so all I can remember when I was super depressed and dealing with that depression is just not leaving my room. I never did. I would come home and I would just go up in my room, and I would still like have like a few hobbies here and there, and I would still do like the odd thing, but I just remember the biggest feelings of loneliness and the biggest feelings of emptiness came from me when I was spending just too much time alone in that room. And so my therapist, the one time we were talking about this, and she asked me to go stand outside of that house, and I was like I instantly just felt my heart rate just like go, just my heart like lodged into my throat. That was how my heart rate felt. And I was like no, I can't, like it's too much. And so just slowly and surely, with that mindset of just like, okay, you don't have to go inside the house, just stand outside and know that like that version of yourself is inside. And it was like a very overwhelming emotional thing for me to go through. That sounds really dramatic, but I just mean being told to go back there, it made me realize how much I had really blocked this out from myself, because I was like, like that's too much, it's too much to feel. And so slowly and surely, it was just like every day, just kind of like tapping back into that. I was standing outside the house, and then all of a sudden I was going inside the house, and that version of me was upstairs. This sounds like a creepy movie. And then finally it came time to like actually going up the stairs and opening the door and just seeing like that broken, sad version of my teenage self inside that room, and then going in and being able to basically like console that version of who I was, but also that version of me that never got that consoling, you know? And so when I did that and when I took that mental, kind of like mental homework, and just slowly made it more and more comfortable to step one little baby step closer to, you know, the water, if you will, like just one closer to that little fear of whatever it is that you're resisting feeling. It made me more and more comfortable with feeling that feeling and to face that feeling and to be aware of it was okay that I wasn't okay, and it is okay to go back there now and tell myself that I'm gonna be okay, even though I already know now that I end up being okay. Because if I didn't do that, and if I didn't basically take that mental exercise and work with it, there would still be a big part of me that would be in a blind spot, a skeleton in a closet, a version of me or a side of me or a time in my life that I just have never faced. And it becomes like, I think in a lot of ways, kind of like a weak point, or like it becomes a pain, it becomes a pressure point, and that pressure point can build and build if it gets ignored for too long and start affecting you in other ways in your life. And so I guess my takeaway is this: whether you've dealt with depression before or not, and I can do a bigger video on depression if you guys want me to, because it definitely is one of those things that I've talked a lot about anxiety, and I have talked here and there about depression, but I definitely think that it was a bigger element in my life than I've really kind of disclosed, or I guess dove into. But I think the takeaway from today's video is more so that whatever it is that you're afraid to feel, whatever it is that is not so fun to look at, or if you've ever dealt with a phase in your life where it's too raw to go back there and to face that feeling, that you're not alone, and that every time that you do that little mental activity of just stepping a little bit closer to that feeling and letting yourself kind of like be okay with that feeling again, you'll finally be able to let it pass through you. The weird deja vus of just like, I've been here before, or like a song will come up and I'm like, I feel something that I don't, is not relevant to my life now, but I can tell I felt this at a time in my life that was similar to this. And those little like deja vu creepy moments will stop happening, because you'll have digested that part of your life, and that tension will no longer be constraining you anymore. So I had a few talking points in today's video, but I really went off. So hopefully I stayed enough on par that it made some sort of sense. And yeah, and maybe it gave you guys a little bit more insight too into my past history with mental health. And I don't really know how to like wrap up this video now. I feel like I didn't have a good enough point to end on, but I guess that's just life sometimes. So I'm gonna go. I feel like I'm getting weird, and anxiety, like not anxiety, but I'm getting weird. So I'm gonna go. Let me know what you guys think about today's topic down below. And if you've ever dealt with something similar, or if you are currently going through something similar where you're getting closer and closer to just letting yourself feel something that maybe you pushed off at an earlier time in your life. And aside from that, I will talk to all of you guys tomorrow morning. Bye guys.